report. Honourable Nzimande.
No, thanks, Chair. I will be short. Now, the first part is that I thought we passed the hurdle on the enforceability of the recommendation of the Commission. And because we have heard sharply from also Commissioner Dillon that that is no more an issue based on the recent judgment dealing with the legal effect of what recommendation. So that shouldn't be an issue that sounds like a challenge in our view. But secondly, what I wanted just to deal with is your role to really uphold the constitutional rights of the people, that whatever you deal with, whether it's about infrastructural matters in a form of ICT or whatever, look at the real needs, as you are speaking about the needs, at the real needs for people who are not giving you a proper picture in terms of the statistics that you always account about, whether it's about grievances, whether it's about UD, ULP, or whatever matters that you deal with, because of inaccessibility of your offices, looking at the rural areas in particular. People that have no access, internet, cafes, and all those things, who might have been, as a sanction, suspended as a sanction, who want also to access you, but because you are inaccessible, that matter does not get registered. That's one. Secondly, or if it's registered outside the timelines, and you know how cunning are departments, they will come from the angle to say, but what you are referring now, it's outside of our grievance procedure. As a result, therefore, it doesn't give the proper picture of the actual environment that people are dealing with. So what I'm trying to ask is whether you have done some environmental scanning in terms of the needs to be at least biased to those that were highly disadvantaged, not those that are having access like in semi-urban or urban areas, because that's where the concentration is, and that's where really people will also have resources to access this. But those that are really poor and very much disadvantaged has never been taken care of. I just want to check, as you are looking at this route, have you considered that? So that we are able to have a broader picture, also in terms of the people enjoying the rights that are there in the Constitution, equally so. You see, you can't speak equality when really in actual practice there's no equality that people are enjoying. The manner that we handle issues. That's one aspect. That's the next question. But the last question then, Chair, is in relation to. Oh, no, it will affect just the Department of Public Works. Really, I don't think it's important that I delve on that because, it will require them to have a right of reply on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Nzimande. Honourable Commander, would you like to continue?
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me also join colleagues to welcome the report by Prof. Commissioner and the team. It also talk on very important areas which require government to pay more attention to. I think there is a global phenomenon which reflects on the shrinking on levels of productivity in the public service, which is informed by many factors. Some of those factors relates to how we respond to issues of accessibility, as you have made mention of, but also how can we best link that with how do we rationalize the staffing that is already employed in the public sector. And looking at the numbers of employees, comparing that with levels of productivity, there's a big question that needs to be answered. Now, that brings me to the first issue that during COVID-19, some of us were introduced to these virtual meetings, were never exposed beside looking at these things in films, but we became practitioners when COVID-19 attacked us. Now, the question that I have we conducted a study which reflects, I recall this because I served in SALGA National Executive Committee. The team came to present a policy during COVID-19. That policy was suggesting that it's better that we sustain beyond COVID-19 that people work from home. And what are the implications of that? How do you enforce the levels of discipline, ethics, and professionalism whilst you are responding? Because we found that to be more economical than people traveling to meetings. Here in Parliament, we call departments to come before the select committees, but sometimes we venture into virtual meetings so that we can be economical in the exercise. So my question is, have we looked at this study so that when you compare the levels of availability of accommodation is also responding to that question? Then the second one is based on, especially in rural areas. In rural areas, the Department of Education is implementing a program called School Transformation Program. That School Transformation Program have conducted assessment of each and every schools located in rural areas, the numbers of learners and all of that, which has resulted to a process where most of the schools are now closed. Why they are closed down? It's because the numbers have shrunk in terms of attendance, because people have relocated where there are better services in towns. Now, taking advantage of that, is there any plan linking to the report that will suggest that those schools which are no longer utilized, they must be repurposed so that you guarantee the accessibility in rural communities of government services? So I think that's why I can stop, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Kaunda. Let's deal with those two sets of questions and then we can move on to Honourable Molokome.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. On the question of the enforceability, of the recommendations of the PSC, I mean, Honourable Nzimande, you are absolutely right that the expectation is that is something that is supposed to be a thing of the past, largely as a result of the latest developments, and the pronouncement already made, also flowing, from a course of law that have pronounced on the work that flows from constitutional bodies. But I think that what is remaining is a question of that recognition insofar as the reality on the ground, from the side of the departments. What, for instance, from the side of the Public Service Commission, we have indicated is that when we present our reports, we do say to executive authorities that, by the way, the recommendations of the Public Service Commission, the expectation is that they are supposed to be implemented. But if executive authorities for whatever reason, have a different view, they must then take them, through the review process. So they can't simply assume that we can just ignore them. So, but the problem that we are sitting with as we are reviewing where we are currently, we discover that a large number, or percentage of these recommendations have not necessarily seen the light of day, largely as a result, again, of the fact that the Public Service Commission is thin on the ground. So when it comes to this work that is supposed to be pursued and so on and so forth, that, for instance, just to cite a simple example with provinces, because it's a painful kind of arrangement, by the way, that when in terms of the new arrangement, flowing from the Public Service Commission Act of 97, and its establishment is concerned, was that there was this kind of a thumb-suck arrangement of how the provinces are supposed to be operating, so that there was this undertaking that said each province shall have a commissioner and a staff complement of 10. So that is why you'll find that in some instances they will be having the staff complement of 10. In some instances they will not even have such a staff complement. But now with also these resource constraints, that for whatever reason, if she steps down, then you can't also fill that position. So, which immediately then creates another crisis. So that's a kind of reality that we are finding ourselves in, because of the problem that we are facing. So we are now banking on the new Public Service Commission bill, because we are saying that once enacted, and giving that kind of latitude for the Public Service Commission, to operate now as an independent body with its own secretariat, that such decisions will not hinge on whether this is actually in alignment with how government is expecting, the following to be tackled and so on and so forth. So some of these things we are beginning to explore as a Public Service Commission. For instance, looking into the type of work that we are doing with professionalization getting underway, we've basically realized that in the government arrangement, we don't have such resources. And we've then begun to say that let's look for resources outside the state. So for instance, with that fundraising arrangement, we've had the UNDP being prepared to invest such resources, to say, as we embark in this program, we are actually prepared to come and support you and so on. So we're working very hard to get that kind of a support. And we are saying that, but it will only give us freedom, once the Public Service Commission is operating on the basis of the new act. So, but similarly, the World Bank has given an indication that their interest is largely, on supporting municipalities when it comes to municipal CFOs. So those are kinds of arrangements that are currently underway, but they are working in that instance from the World Bank directly with the National Treasury, to come on board to provide that kind of support. But the understanding was, if we can get that right, and they understand these kinds of finances and so on, will stand a better chance to be in a position to say, in municipalities, there is that kind of conviction that when they are dealing with these matters, CFOs will provide the necessary support in those areas and so on. But that challenge is there. There is another element that we've introduced, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, to say that in instances where we want to see action, we then have decided to move away from recommendations and said, we then shall issue directions. And directions, we say, they can't be contested. So we've seen one of the cases, for instance, that has happened recently, where we issued directions, and the MEC, or rather the minister in this instance, was reluctant to go ahead, with those directions. And we said, okay, of course, you must remember that, by the way, if you don't go ahead, then let's have something in writing that says you are taking this process on a review. And we suddenly discovered that then the minister actually changed, tune to say, oh, no. Actually, that direction is going to be implemented. In one of the provinces, what has happened is that there was a contestation on the directions, and we said, please go ahead and take it on review. And they've done that. Now, the process that is currently unfolding is seemingly, from the perspective of the MEC, going to be hitting hard on the state, because we're very clear to say you must be very, very reluctant to use the resources of the state to defend something that you're going to lose. at the end of the day, because we've given you this evidence that says that we've done this homework. So if you take us on, you are going to lose in the process, but we are reluctant that you'll be using the resources of the state in doing so. So what is happening currently is that in that instance, now they want to backtrack, but the process is already underway because they took us to court. So the court proceedings are already unfolding. Now they can no longer backtrack because it's already underway. But the problem, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, is that these are matters, as we always say, that they must understand as we present them, to say that they must be very careful about the course of action that they are taking, because at the end of the day, it will come back, to hit them terribly. On the question of rural areas, because you're absolutely right, the problem is they don't have the necessary resources. What we had introduced as the Public Service Commission to address that problem was what we refer to, as our own citizens forums. In terms of these citizens forums, what we will do is to identify per province one of these most remote places, deep rural settings and so on, because we'll be looking into what it means for the communities to get such services, and we'll then say that is where we shall go. But what we then do, which is fairly interesting when we're communicating it to your good selves, as Parliament, was that we don't simply just go there and say we are here to do a citizens forum. We first go and do our own research, find out what the real issues are. That is why in many settings we've discovered that such communities do not have the resources even of traveling to the nearby town. Because it means traveling to the nearby town will mean that a person will have to leave home at about 4 or 5 in the morning. They'll be traveling for the next 3-4 hours, getting to the nearest town. Now, we are then saying that if they get to such towns, they give us information that says, having queued in the Home Affairs office, before I could be served, it was the end of the day, and the office has to be closed. I have to then get transport back home. What amount have you parted with? Communities tell us that to get to town, you must have 300 rands. Now, they don't even have that. You have to borrow in order to do that. Now, they say, but how then do you get a service? They say, no, it means that I have to wait for the next 6 months so that I can raise that and go back to town. Now, we then say, this is a community that deserves us coming there. Now, with that information now at our back pocket, we then go to the relevant departments to say, Home Affairs, SAPS, and all these government departments, SASA and what have you, we are going to be doing the Citizens Forum so months down the line. We want all of you to come with us. There are these issues in our communities and so on, but bring the services along with you, mobile services, so that you can then come as we meet communities, you provide services to them. And the interesting thing is that government was saying that, but this model is actually excellent. How did you come up with this arrangement? We said, no, it's not because we thought about it. It's because we had communities saying these are the issues. And then we said, in order to address these issues, let's come to communities to say we are here to answer your questions. But at the same time, as we answer your questions, we've got all these departments that we've already identified as your challenges. And they get services. I mean, they get their birth certificates issued there and then, IDs issued there and then, and so on. And when we leave such community, they say, we are so happy that the Public Service Commission has been here. And we've done that across the country, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members. We can make such reports available. But now, here is a snag. The crisis of finances has now, in a way, strangled us not to continue with that program. Simply because we don't have the kinds of resources. Because we were saying, if you go to such communities, we also have to arrange for transport, for people to be taken from different villages to be brought wherever we are going to be, because we put up, a tent there and so on and so forth. Because communities can't be there. They can't actually travel so many X number of kilometers to get there. We have to bring them there. We have to transport them back. It's such a logistical nightmare. So we've been doing all those things with the resources at our disposal that we had. So, but currently we have said, let's park that for now. But there's one that we are going to be actually just seeing through, because we had promised the communities, in the rural settings in the Western Cape that shall happen. So that's the only one that is going to be happening now, together with the one that we've already done in Limpopo of report backs. But what we did was to go initially, deal with whatever issue that have been presented and so on, and answering questions and so on, but then say to the communities, with all the other issues that you've raised, we shall return in a year's time, so that we can come back and report what had happened. In some communities, what has happened is that, let's say, SAPS have realized that the crisis of crime is simply because communities don't have access to such facilities. Some communities, as a result of the Citizens Forum, have actually now succeeded to get a mobile SAPS facility in such a community that comes just to provide that particular service at particular points and so on. Now, we're saying that these are things that begin to at least be interventions, that take communities, forward in some way. So these are kinds of processes that we've put in place. And then, Honorable Kaunda, you've mentioned the question of the challenges, around productivity levels that are consistently shrinking, which is a fact, but it's associated also with the resources, that are allocated, to these particular programs and so on. So the reality is, what then do we do in order to at least address such a problem in a manner that will be effective, for communities? The program that you've rightly mentioned on education, on the question of school transformation and so on, we've gone to a number of these rural areas and discovered schools with proper structures that have been shut down, and nothing is happening in those areas. Now, we are saying that this is actually where, as government, there must be the thinking that says, how do we use these facilities for the sake of communities? But of course, that one is even far-fetched, because we have not used facilities, as we mentioned earlier, that we already had so many moons ago, that are also falling apart, like those teacher training colleges and so on and so forth, that are already falling apart. Some of them that we inherited, from former structures like self-governing states and so on, where communities actually take us to say, do you know that this building actually belongs to a government? Now, before we can even talk, what are you going to do about it? We say, but why are you so interested in it? They say, because it's been invaded. The fellows that have taken over don't even know who they are, but they're renting out the facility and so on. Now you ask the ones who are renting to say, but why are you doing it? They say, we're so desperate. We don't have anywhere to sleep. Do you know who's renting the facility to you? They say, we do not know either. But how do you pay? No, they have their own agents who come and get this. And it's such a confusing arrangement, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. But these are things that we're picking up as we do this kind of work. So there are so many complications, but it requires a kind of highly sophisticated strategy of beginning to say where we are currently, how do we begin to address these problems? Because they are not going to go away on their own. So that's the kind of reality that is facing us at this day and age. But when we touch this area of DPWI, you suddenly realize that you're actually touching the entire government, but in a very awkward fashion, because they themselves are put in a very awkward situation by the manner in which we have begun to drive the process ourselves. So in a sense, we've sold out on them. Our expectations are actually not in line with what they're supposed to be doing. So that is why the rethinking is something that we really need to put in place in a complete sense of the word. So that is why we are saying that as we engage in this particular manner, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, from our side, because we have this research, that we've been doing in many of these aspects, that we will obviously be asking Honorable Chair and Honorable Members that please, whenever there is a specific matter that you want us to once again provide to your good selves, even if we simply just pass it on and so on, and we want an explanation, we can do that, virtually and so on. We are keen to do that because we are saying that this is actually what needs to be there at your disposal in order for yourselves, to feel comfortable with the work that you are supposed to be doing, because your role is to hold, our executive authorities accountable. So there is no two ways about it, but you can only do so because there is information at your disposal. And in our case, we do churn out these kinds of reports and so on, and we want to share them with yourselves, because I've discovered that the reports can be so meaningless if they are sitting there, without anyone actually giving meaning to them. So that is why these kinds of interactions will be fairly critical. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you very much for that. I think it's so how did we get here over the last 5 years, and what should we be doing in the opposite direction from now on? Thank you very much. Honorable Malakami?
Thank you, Chair, and greetings again. Chair, I'll go straight to, because some of the questions my colleagues has covered me. I'll just go straight to page 12 on the findings by the AG. And the repeated findings that the department is unable to, or the commission is unable to deal with that. Chair, we had met with the AG in other committee, and also the issue of the departments not being able to deal with the findings itself. So my question is, what are those findings? Because it seems as if they repeat themselves and the department is unable to deal with such. The second issue is about the consultants. Yeah, it seems as if you are using the consultants, and this is also happening in other departments and also municipalities that we have. And my question is that the use of the consultants, are they helping you to deal with the findings that the AG is raising? Because, Chair, I've picked that the commission itself, if you can listen to their presentation, is really worrisome. And I'm picking a point that it seems as if there's the department is not coming to the board to deal with the issues and the recommendations that the commission is presenting to us. So I just want to check whether you have issues, or how often do you meet with the department itself to deal with these matters that you have been facing. Chair, the issue of the outreach programs, of which the indication is the challenge about the budget for them to have the outreach program that you have indicated. Do you, when you conduct this the outreach programs, do you liaise with municipalities in those provinces? Because I know that if ever there's a communication between the three spheres of government, obviously you'll find that the municipalities has their own imbizos, and you can be invited to such, so that you reduce even the issue of the logistics that you have to do when you are going to those provinces. So the communication between especially the local sphere, when they have such programs, you can be invited so that you provide the information to citizens, because we know what honorable members has raised about you being known. How do the communities itself reach you so that they can raise those issues and so forth. The properties, Chair, you know, government properties, especially in the public works, even the issue of accommodation itself is a bit of a challenge, because we still have lots of properties that are invaded or not in good condition. Especially some of the buildings are the structures as asbestos structures, and we are expecting the deployees to go and live there, and also to provide services when they don't even live in a conducive environment itself. So I think the issues that you have raised, Chair, we need to get the report, the full report, and maybe the commission should also indicate to the committee what is it that you want us to help you with, so that when we meet with these departments, they are able to we are able to raise those issues, because even the committee, we do the oversight. Maybe when we do our oversight visit, we need to visit some of these government properties so that we know the condition, and when we recommend. I see, Chair, you are indicating the issue of time. Last question. I know that you are used that I'm not, usually I don't ask many questions because I speak last.
It's not that. I just know how long Honorable Peza normally takes.
So today is my turn because at least I'm not the last one to ask questions. Lastly, I think it's on page 12. The issue of, let me just go there quickly. It's my last question, Chair. No, it's not 12. The issue of equity, I'm not sure about that page here. Is page 19. The issue of equity in terms of your targets. I'm worried. I was just checking at your structure also as the commission. I'm only seeing 3 or 4. I know that it might not be in your capacity to deal with it. 3 or 4 females in that structure. Most is males, and we are talking about the issue of equity and youth and disability. So we need to check into that issues, because if we want to balance, we need to look into that aspect when we come up with these commissions, the structure and so forth. Maybe next time, I don't know when you were, the commission was I put, maybe when the new commission comes, Chair, we'll have more females and also people with disability, and so that we have everyone accommodated when we are in this. Thanks, Chair. I was just fast because you are...
Thank you for the half an hour, Honorable Molokome. Honorable Peter, let's see if you can beat that time, if you don't mind, and then we can go over to answers. Thanks very much. I still want to give chance to Honorable Peza, Honorable Makasini, and I'd also like to ask a question. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair. You know me, I won't be long, Chair. But I can see the commission is wearing a blanket of pieces of stones. The manner in which you are struggling, I can see through your face. That is not easy what you are doing. But let me go straight to my question. My first question is, can your department inform this select committee about its achievement since its inception? Number 2, what obstructs your department not to achieve some of its work? Why is it so difficult for this commission to render its services to rural areas, if there is any? Or does your department work under pressure due to ministers who come and go through lack of accountability? Let's go to slide 12. The utilization of consultants, you using appropriated funds. Based on your findings, does your department administration also run by consultants? If yes, what is your role in the department? Lastly, Chair, who monitor or inspect your work based on your user management plan? Does it include system of managing all your assets via manually or app? How do you run your assets? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Peter. Over to you. You're welcome to answer those.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'll ask Ms. Domingo Swartz to answer.
Chairperson, just through you, honourable members, the slides in terms of the achievement against the constitutional values and principles does not reflect the Public Service Commission. It is the data for the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So we are presenting their performance against the constitutional values and principles. So it's not that we don't have females. We do have a lot of females, Honourable Member, at the Public Service Commission. If you even look at our Deputy Chairperson is also a female. So it's not just females at lower level, but also females within the ranks of the Commission. We've got 3 DDG posts in the Commission, and of those 3, 2 are females. We have 3 branches, and each of those branches have got 2 chief directors, which is basically then 6, and of those 6, I do believe 4 of those chief directors are females. So the picture for the Commission is totally different from the information as provided. Honourable Chair, just through you, I just want to indicate that since the PAC started with this functional accommodation program, we have been working, so it's for the last 4 years. We had 3 different ministers that we had to work with. So in terms of the enforceability, it's not so much that people are so hard resistant, but it's the musical chairs. It's the fact that we get the buy-in from a minister, and as soon as that minister knows 100% what is required, unfortunately it changes. So in the last 4 years of trying to implement or facilitate the implementation of these recommendations, we had 4 ministers. So our commissioner has taken a hands-on approach, as he has indicated, of making sure that we have regular engagements. I just want to indicate also that we do have a report on the support mechanisms that were put in place during COVID and the impact it had on service delivery. So we can definitely share that report as well, including the report on the ICT study to really understand the infrastructure and the impact that ICT has got on the on service delivery. Again, and I think just in terms of the AG repeat findings, Honourable Member, it is specifically in terms of compliance with legislation. The challenge with DPWI, it seems like their focus is on reporting the information and not necessarily following the guidelines. So the guidelines is specific in terms of the type of information that should be in the annual report, and I think it's a question of just ticking off. I've reported on that. Whether it complies with the full requirements doesn't matter as long as the information is available. And in terms of the frequency of the engagements with the department, what we've also done, all the inspections, as Mr. Litwala has indicated, we make sure that the representatives of DPWI go with us wherever we go. I don't know if Honourable Members, Honourable Chair is aware of the fact that we also have been asked by the Portfolio Committee on Communication and Digital Technology with the Minister to launch an investigation into CETA. So in terms of how CETA is providing the ICT infrastructure. So we are also in a position, or we would appreciate it if the committee should be going out on an oversight visit. If you want us to come with you to a previous site that we've been at, we can then share with you, but this is exactly what we found. If they say there were improvements, you have us there to show that this is not the case, because this is what we definitely found. Our colleagues have been going with the client departments, the DPWI representatives, and it's a question of nobody can run away, because if you want to blame me, I'm at the table. If I want to blame you, you at the table. So there is representativity of all the role players, and we can hold each other basically accountable. I think Commissioner has indicated, Honourable Member, it is actually, it costs about 500K to undertake a citizens forum, because we really try and go to the furthest outskirts of a province. We were in the in the Northern Cape, and we were actually close to which border, Commissioner?
To the border of
Namibia. That's how far we went out, and we made sure that we take all the relevant services to the people. And Honorable Chair, you know, when you are inviting the community members, some of those people haven't even eaten for 3 days. So obviously we try and make sure that the people get full food on the day. We share the food with schools and whatever infrastructure is available for us to share. We do work very closely with the Office of the Premier, making sure that every single department in the province is involved in one way or the other. We even try to use some of their vehicles, Honourable Member, so that we can try and cut costs. The sad thing that we experience is when it comes to the catering services, we try to make sure that we use the caterers within the community. And now we need to negotiate with people that are already struggling to cut. So that's the saddest thing, because we're trying to support woman-owned companies or catering services, and so to fight and negotiate for basic services so that we can save money is also defeating the purpose. So I think that is very important that we highlight that. And yeah, I think we've answered all the other questions. And then again, Honourable Member, I think the main thing in terms of the monitoring that the PAC needs to do is we need to hold everybody accountable. And if we can work together to ensure that whoever comes and presents to this select committee, if we can share with you any relevant information, as Commissioner has said, we will do so that you have evidence in that you can use to engage with that role player. I thank you.
Okay, Honourable Chairperson, just Mr. Tswalo to cover that.
I think, so you Honourable Chair, that Ms. Domingos has almost covered everything, but there was an interesting question about our own user asset management plan, if we've got that in place. Look, that's something we need to look into, because we are currently using a leased building. So again, that's one thing we did not mention. There's different asset register for leased buildings. So leased buildings, as you know, the owner is responsible for the maintenance, so that wouldn't have a user asset management plan, but we are looking into that in terms of the state properties where you find that a department is renting a building from a private organization, like we are doing. And also I'm aware there's current negotiations in terms of devolving, you know, in terms of acquiring our own official accommodation as well. So just to touch on that. Thanks.
Yes, and then Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, on that question of the support from municipalities, that we do have that direct, you know, engagement with them. In many instances, they have actually assisted in supporting communities, you know, in order to cover, you know, the Public Service Commission. So we don't simply just rock up and you find that nobody knows about our presence and so on, because we feel that that is irresponsible. Even chiefs, in instances where we have traditional leaders, we go and report formally before we can even do the work and so on, so that we don't simply just come over and take off again without them having had that kind of recognition and so on. So we take that part very seriously. And then, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, on the question of equity, I mean, from the side of the Commission itself, because the Public Service Commission, in terms of the staffing, OPSC, as she's indicated, we are excellent in that area. Actually, predominantly the leadership is in the hands of females. But when it comes to the commission itself, it was an interesting one, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, because we are actually helpless in that situation, because we don't appoint commissioners. Commissioners are appointed by the National Assembly. So the interesting thing is that we always mention that, by the way, this is the challenge. But of course, we are not part of that. So commissioners are delivered by the National Assembly. So we can't contest that because we don't have that authority. So I think that's a dicey one, you know, so that's why we need to report in that kind of manner, Honourable Chair. And then, Honourable Peter, I know that we were worried about whether we do use consultants. Unfortunately, we don't. We use our own resources, even if we are thin on the ground, but we consistently do the work ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.